Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. Today I'm going to do a solo. So there was a few things I wanted to kind of help and assist us all with. And I have, of course, my records open, so they're going to help me try to plan out the best way to go about talking about our current situation and current energy and how we should be working, how our energy should be working and focusing towards. So the first thing that I want to say is I'm going to try to focus this episode on it being about us understanding the difference between 4D and 3D. Because I think that if once we understand the big difference between them, then we can possibly decide, you can every morning, decide which one you're going to stand in that day. So when we began the year 2020, we know that the Akashic Records told us that we needed to go in. So they were very content with the scenario of us being limited because they needed us to have that scenario to slow us down, to quiet us down, and for us to question ourselves, question our lives, the way we were living, our priorities. And I can't speak for everyone because everyone's, the podcast listeners live all around the world. And we have people from family members that are like mothers and fathers. We have some children. We have some people that are younger that are listening that might be college era. Like, it's impossible to define put us all in one kind of neat little pile and say, this is how we all lived it, because that's not the way it is. Obviously, we all have our own soul experiences as well. So we're all here to experience life a little bit differently. But what I would say is what we all should have felt at some point in general, we all should have been able to stay still and go, I've been too busy. Like I've just been so busy. There's always something to do. And half the time, maybe I wasn't even doing what I was feeling I wanted to do. Maybe there were a lot of work obligations or even family or friend obligations. Maybe, you were packed with weddings and, people around, my age, for example, I knew I had a lot of friends who were like, oh, there's a wedding here. Oh, there's a baby being born. There's a baby shower. And it's just, and so your weekends, when you were off work, your weekends were packed with those, I guess, I don't like calling them obligations because, it's still friends that you love and things like that. But they're still social obligations because you're trying to support someone in your life, right? You're trying to be there for them. And the problem is that those are great things, but most of those things that we were expected to do were just traditions coming from our, I guess you could say, our culture or our society, where when someone's pregnant, they're going to have a baby shower, or when someone's going to get married, you have to have the bachelorette party, and then depending on where in the world you are, but the bachelorette party and then the wedding. And so this with, it's like all these social structures create the social obligations for you to be considered a supportive friend or a supportive member of the family or whatever it is the scenario is in your life at the time. And that becomes tricky because souls, I'm gonna try to zoom out a bunch. So try to keep an open mind. I'm gonna zoom all the way out of the scenario that is our, matrix and say souls didn't sign up to have a busy life of 50 million things of social obligations. The soul literally contract, if we had to break it down to the most simple aspect of it, is I'm here to learn this. I'm here to possibly bump into these individuals because I have things I want to experience with them still. And I'm here to set myself up for success in this, or that. I'm here to set myself up in success to learn and understand this, and that. it's not there. In no point in the contract does it say you're going to spend the next 15 years between 20, and up, having to go to all these social events that keep you busy and possibly knock you off track from what you're supposed to really focus on. So, and of course, I'm not saying don't go to those events, because I definitely am not saying that. What I'm saying is we got to a point in society where most of us were so busy that we didn't have time to even say, how do I really feel? Have I made a moment for myself? Have I had a moment for me and just my family with no obligations, where there's no plan on the weekend? There's just being. And then we just, all of a sudden we feel like we want to do this, and it just naturally happens. And then things can flow and synchronicities can fall into the day. It's really hard to have life synchronicities when everything is already very bombarded in your mind with your plans. Like your whole month is already really planned and everything's already packed in there, and there's no space for evolving it, or there's no space for kind of letting life just flow. And so we haven't learned to be able to let things flow, because everything's so controlled or overly planned. So going in had so many different aspects, from understanding the life that you chose, to understanding that you could change it, to also realizing that you weren't just being, you were just, you're a calendar that was keeping those tasks up to date and making sure that you were going at the right time to the right places on the right day, kind of thing. So we need to find a nice balance. And I think Lorena always talks about like boundaries. And when Lorena says she has issues with boundaries, sometimes Lorena finds it really hard to say, maybe to a friend or a meeting, like, no, I'm actually going to take that day. I actually already had planned a day for myself or something, like, and it is really hard for a lot of people to do that. And it does take standing in in yourself and saying, this is what I really need. I need to respect it. And I know personally, contrary to Lorena, I've had in the past, I've made decisions where I didn't decide to go to somebody's. Like, I remember clearly off the top of my head, I can think that I had a good friend who had graduated, and she wanted to do this big dinner with her family and like her friends, and they were all going to come. It was kind of intimate in a way. It wasn't this big party. And she obviously wanted me there. And I had been, through the whole path with her of graduating and stuff. And I was having a lot of issues at the time with my marriage. And I remember I felt like I just needed to be alone with my thoughts. This was before I had a child, and I was busy working though, but I could say I'm taking one day in the weekend and I'm just doing nothing. And I hadn't fully made this decision. I wasn't going. I was telling her I wasn't sure if I was going. And then I remember I got hit by this like sorrow kind of thing about my current personal life scenario with my, at the time, husband. And I remember thinking, I just need a night to myself. Like, maybe it's to cry, maybe it's to watch a sad movie and help me get out all those emotions. But I needed that night to myself. And I ended up telling my friend that I was not going to be going, that I really just felt like being alone. I was honest about it. I didn't make up an excuse. I told her the truth. And that was the last time I ever spoke to her, because she decided that I was a really bad friend because I didn't go to that celebration. And I was like, okay, fine, and I kind of let that friendship go, because I realized that energy didn't suit me. If that individual, it was make or break everything or nothing, then, well, where's the space for me to have my own life? And where's the space for me to be able to live in my own emotions? Because I have my own life contract. So I think a lot of us feel like we don't want to let our friends down, and are afraid maybe that our friends are going to get mad or something. But you need to really decide, what is it that you feel that you really want to do? Are you being really true to what you really feel like doing that day? Just make sure to do that. So there was a lot of people not listening to what they were really feeling and wanting to do that day. And those individuals were probably busy most of the time, keeping up with all of those activities and those social obligations. And so going in, aside from work as well, going in was something we all needed to do. In that process, it was the beginning of the detaching, releasing, and recognition of the 3D life that we were living. So there was a big, broader aspect to that. It wasn't just us aligning with the more aligned path that our soul came to choose, to do what our soul came to do, it was also for us to start seeing the 3D world external from ourselves. So I want to try to change the words in case somebody didn't understand the way I just said that. We live stuck in 3D. Our consciousness is stuck in 3D. Our reality is 3D. Our governments are 3D. Our media is 3D. Our social structure is 3D. Everything around us is 3D. We're bathed and submerged in 3D energy. Like everything has 3D energy in this scenario I'm talking about, right? How do you get out of that? Because we want ascension, right? We want the human consciousness to expand. We want the human consciousness to start awakening and to start walking into 4D. Because I know that there's a lot of memes out there, and I've said this before, like, oh, keep calm, walking into 5D kind of thing. Like, it's not that easy. You can't just, you're not going to get people that live in 3D, boom, and the whole earth is vibrating in 5D. We all live in this blissful 5D, which, by the way, 5D isn't imperfection either. There's conflict there as well in many aspects in a different way, but everyone's image of 5D is that this perfectly vibrating, nothing is mistaken. There's still little tiny cracks that need to be solved, and the more consciousness that expands that's in 5D, the more perfect it becomes. So we are actually the creators of a perfect 5D. But if you compare your consciousness to this 3D you've been stuck in, and you place yourself in 5D, it feels like the most perfect thing ever in the world. Yeah, definitely. But there's still learning that can be done there. So that's what the lack of perfection is. You can still learn, you can still expand, it can still be better, it can still improve. There could still be more aligned scenarios. So I use the word conflict, and I don't like that because it's like it has a negative. It's like negative. I feel like saying the word conflict negative. When I say conflict for 5D, there's still different perspectives. Souls can still feel different. Souls can still think differently. It's not like we all go into 5D and we all of a sudden think exactly the same. Actually, that's not the way it works. But so for us to be able to walk the path towards 5D, for Earth to start expanding, because the plan was for Earth to go into the 4D era, that's always been the plan. What did, I guess, the divine source or divine creation, what had to happen? They needed humanity. I'm saying they because it's a bunch of spiritual beings kind of trying to assist Earth with it. They needed humanity to recognize the 3D density. If you don't see it, you can't avoid it or grow from it. So we needed to see it. So hopefully most of us did. I feel like for me personally, from the beginning of the quarantine era or pandemic, all the way up until now, I've taken a very slow process of recognizing what 3D is. And to be honest with you, if you would have told me back in 2020, I would have thought that I would have gotten it in a few months. But here I am, and it's past, right? We're in 2022, and I'm just realizing that I was able to do that, that I'm able now to start recognizing that. So I'm setting this whole scenario up for you guys to understand. We started recognizing 3D. Hopefully, most of us are on that path. Most of us listening here are on that path where we're recognizing 3D and we're trying to break that structure in our own realities. You cannot break the 3D structure for your loved ones or your family or your friends. This is a very unique path, and it's a unique soul expansion experience. Some consciousness are prepared for it, and some are not. I would say that if you're listening to spiritual content, you're in the process of either doing it or figuring it out. You're trying to figure out what's real, what's not real, what works, what doesn't work. What do I believe is real? What do I believe is not real? Not everybody's reality is going to feel and look the same. And not everybody's reality is going to be able to break fully from the structure of 3D in the same time, or some not at all, possibly. So hopefully most of us have started recognizing those 3D things. And hopefully most of us have started trying to be or living in a more 4D place. I think it's really important to separate what would represent 4D and what would represent 3D, so that we can consciously choose it, like I was saying in the beginning of the episode. So now we know 3D are all those limiting, really heavy, kind of dense structures that obligate me to do things that possibly keep me busy, that keep me distracted, and that keep me not really aligning with my full flow and my full aligned self and my full soul contract and purpose and mission, right? And we have this game of light and dark going on, which a lot of us on a day-to-day basis are not conscious of it. It's really hard to not be, it's really hard to kind of fully pick up on all the tricks, but there is, we always talked about, we had a few episodes about like conspiracy theory and things like that. There is an energy that is controlling. There is an energy that does want to some sort of a way take over or, have us under their thumb, I guess you could say. That does exist. And we could call it that's part of the darker side. So we have the light and the dark kind of working together. So for us, we're fighting against this or that all the time. It feels like, oh, I'm fighting against this, or this is my mission. This is where I stand with this scenario, and I fight against this, or I am against this, or I verbalize and show, and I position myself inside of a scenario, and I say, this is who I stand for. This is what I stand for. This is where I stand. I stand with this place, this person, this individual, this group of people. I mean, it could be anything from deciding that you stand for, yoga, or deciding that you stand for, meditation. Maybe you say, no, yoga doesn't work, meditation. It doesn't matter really. You don't have to place yourself. You can say, I enjoy, and for me, I align most with this. It doesn't mean that the other thing doesn't work. It doesn't mean that Reiki, for example, doesn't work. It means that maybe Reiki doesn't work for you as well as yoga does, for someone else. So we don't have to always place ourselves in I am this part. I'm in favor of this band. Let's say that we were at a concert, we had to vote for a band. I vote for this band. This band for me is the best player, and they have to win. You don't have to position yourself. You can actually be an observer. And that's what 4D is all about. You've managed to, it's not a full zoom out like 5D, but it's a partial zoom out. You've zoomed out of that 3D, all those 3D scenarios I described. You zoomed out of that to the point where you're able to sit yourself, place yourself, and vibrate in 4D. And now you can become an observer of the 3D reality. You're not submerged in it. You're not emotionally charged by it. It's not just disturbing you. It's not bringing your energy down. You've managed to get yourself in a place where you can observe the scenarios, watch what's going on, and understand that it's there to wake people up possibly, or it's there to teach people something. But you already know that you've already learned to zoom out of 3D, and you can stand in 4D, and you do not have to place yourself in that scenario. That doesn't mean that you don't have empathy. That doesn't mean you don't have understanding. That doesn't mean you don't help ever at all. It just means that you can sit over here, observe it, understand that this lesson is for people external from you. And if you feel like you want to assist in some sort of way, you can send your energy, for example. That's what I love doing, sending energy and love and prayers towards scenarios and individuals and things that I feel like that really need that. What happens when we've finally made it to 4D, and then there's a scenario that plays out in the 3D world, and we do choose a side? Boom, we've just placed ourselves back into the 3D. Because now you got back into the game of choosing, the duality. Choosing is duality. That's why you're going to see those on the tippity top of the pyramid. They like playing the games of bad guy and good guy. And they do it all the time. And if you had to ask me who's been trying to observe all these scenarios from COVID to I've even looked back in the past of things that have gone on in the world, and I said, they always do it. They always project a good guy and a bad guy. And you have to place yourself on one of those sides. And if you don't place yourself on one of those sides, then what's wrong with you? I guess that's the way that a 3D person would see you. Or if you're placing yourself on supposedly what they consider the wrong side, what's wrong with you? But you can decide that you don't choose, and that you can say as a spiritual person vibrating 4D that you understand that each party and each side has a lesson to learn and has a mission. Maybe one of those is a mission that's on the dark side, and maybe one of those is a mission on the light side, or maybe that's just more complex. Maybe it is that there's these two energies colliding with each other that need each other for something. And who cares or what matters which side is which? Because you're not part of 3D anymore. You're actively every morning waking up and choosing 4D. I want to put a little like pause on this for a second and place a rule that the Akashic Records kind of gave me one day. So when the COVID started, I was realizing that I wanted to keep up to date with the news, but as everybody knows, the news is extremely multiplied and exaggerated, but I still wanted to see what they were giving us because I want to know what is it they're saying. And then I'm going to decide for myself what I think is real, what I think I'm going to accept or not, but I kind of want to be informed. So the way I guess you could say the way I was able to handle it the most was I was going out and walking in nature, and I would listen to kind of like a short clip of the news and see what they're saying about the latest update on anything. In that case, it was the pandemic, right? So I was kind of grounding a lot as much as I could while I was listening to it so that I could handle it better, and whatever I couldn't handle, kind of was going to earth in a way. But also because when I came back, it was like that was the only time I listened to it. And when I came back home, I was trying not to listen to it. I would inform myself maybe in other means, but I would try not to bombard myself or listen too much to the news, because if there's something I also learned in the past years, it's that there is a massive exaggeration of every single scenario. And I'm not just talking about COVID and the pandemic. I'm talking about even now when we're living. Everything is multiplied because they want you in 3D and they want you to choose a side. So this is why I made this episode. Like, I wanted to make sure people understood that not choosing to place yourself in the middle of the game is choosing 4D. So instead of placing ourselves and verbalizing to the world and showing our position, zoom yourself out and send love and light and raise the vibration of earth. Because if you're going down into 3D and placing yourself in choosing a side and verbalize, yes, I stand for this and I stand for that and whatever, you're adding to the 3D density and the 3D scenario, and you're adding to that perfect scenario that will keep us stuck in 3D. If you are someone that's able to say, I see what's going on, there's lessons here to be learned, I understand that Earth needs to move on from this, the best thing for all of us for that to happen, how can I actively every day improve Earth so that there's less suffering and so that there's less conflict and fighting going on, not even just between countries, but between individuals as well. There's a lot of separation between people as well, right? So how can we do that? We place ourselves in 4D. We're zooming out of the scenario to a point where we can observe it, understand it, send our love, but we're vibrating at a higher frequency at this point. We're not placing ourselves in a lower density. We're placing ourselves in a higher density. Our soul's able to come in more. Our body's able to vibrate its frequency even better and higher. Our consciousness starts expanding and understanding the 3D games going on in every single scenario in our life, not just in the news. And then your energy that has just added positive higher frequencies to the human collective and to Earth consciousness now assists for the breakdown of that scenario. So if you're actively choosing 4D, it's going to bring benefits to you. So why wouldn't you take that? Of course, definitely going to take, I guess it would give it's like it's going to make a 360 or something. Like you're just going to cycle through something, close up your old chapter, close up your old 3D life, and you're opening up a new one. You're going to close the cycle, you're going to open another one. So it's going to drastically change, but you have to choose it every day. It's like maybe one week I stayed in 4D and I was able to kind of consciously choose it. And when I caught myself getting into the 3D, I pulled myself out again. Maybe for the first week I did it, and then the next week I fell in again because something really massive in the world happened. Then I'm back in 3D. So it's something that we have to keep choosing. And this kind of reminds me of what are those like people that teach that a new routine has to be done for 21 days for it to become a habit. Well, think about it this way. We need to do this for maybe and it is more than 21 days. Maybe we have to do this for a whole year, actively choosing 4D every day for a whole year till our energy stays there. and we're no longer distracted, caught up, or sucked into 3D. This is what I want for everybody. And for me, this is, I'm talking to you and I'm still figuring this out. Like, I'm not talking and saying I've nailed this and guys, you got to get this down with me and I'm amazing. And look at me, I'm doing it. I'm definitely not. I'm also shifting back and forth, and I'm trying every day to do the 4D thing, right? I personally have tried to get to know myself more, to know what it is that keeps me out of that 4D scenario. And I had done a pause, and then I didn't end up giving you guys what I was going to say in the pause. The rule that the Akashic Records told me, because I was talking about walking around in the path and stuff and the news. So the rule they gave me is you can look to see what 3D scenarios are playing. So that's the news, right? You can look. But let's say that you give 1 hour of your day to that. You have to times that by 3 and do something in the day that multiplies by 3 that hour that you took, and you do it from something for 4 days. So that could be, for example, I spent 1 hour of watching the news, and I'm going to spend 3 hours of listening to music in my house, high frequency, that I really love, and not trying to shut my brain off and allowing myself to listen and enjoy that. I found that for me, puzzles work. Like when things are getting bad, when shit is hitting the fan and people are freaking out and the energy's low, I find that I just put I'll put Gaia on, and I'll listen to like spiritual programs, and I'll have it on the background while I do puzzles. Like I love doing puzzles. So I'll do 1,000 pieces, 1,500 pieces, and I'll be listening in the background to that Gaia. And for some reason that functions really well for me, because it keeps my, that mind, what do they call it? Like the monkey mind, that mind that never wants to stop and always wants to think. Well, now that mind is actually really distracted with finding the right piece to go together and finding the corners and finding the colors that match with this so I can create the section over here of the puzzle. That mind's really occupied and really entertained right now. And then meanwhile, my subconscious is receiving that spiritual information from Gaia, from the Gaia program, right? So that works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but maybe give it a try. Maybe if you find yourself getting sucked into 3D so much, try this out. And then if that doesn't work, try something else out. I know a lot of people say that gardening works for them. A lot of people say that walking on the beach works for them, or going for hikes and nature walks. Whatever it is that works for you, try to bring that in multiplied by the amount of time that you just spend giving 3D world attention. And the other thing I do also is since I've been creating I've been really active with the candle course that Lorena and I have been creating. So I've been recording for us. So Lorena and I channeled a candle course that brings together what our grandma taught us, what our mom taught us, and what the Akashic Records added to that course, and things that we've also studied on the side. So it's like meshing all of that into one big course. So I've been really busy recording that for Lorena and I, because usually I do the recording and Lorena does like the editing and the post editing and stuff for the course. So I've been busy recording that, and that's kept me at a really good 4D place, because I'm recording and I'm speaking about energies and planets and archangels and the days of the week and colors, and it's really good. So maybe even studying something. Maybe you wanted to get into astrology for years now. Maybe sitting down and doing an astrology course is the contradiction to listening to the news. It's that 3 hours that you take, part of those 3 hours in the day you take, that go against the 1 hour of news. And I'm just giving 1 hour as an example. Maybe you decide to do 20 minutes. But just know that that's how you make yourself, you don't get sucked into the 3D. So it's really important for us to consciously choose it, because it's not just going to magically happen. It's not like Earth is going to send its energy, and since we're standing on Earth, we're going to get it, and it's going to be amazing. It's not that easy. And it takes one person raising their energy and vibration and sitting in 4D helps one other person get there. And so we are assisted by each other. And the more people that are vibrating in that, we can easily tap into and stay there, because we're a collective and we connect with each other. Where it's like that net that Lorena and I see around the world. We're connecting with each other. So us 4D energies will all be able to connect with each other and keep us sustained there better. So it's important to know that 4D, there's less duality, and you don't think about the structure, right? So you have 2D would be literally where the polar opposites are created, the yin and the yang. The 2D, that's where that's created, where it begins. 3D is if I had to say it from a place where the Akashic records make me understand it, it's 3D would be, I have those 2D scenarios playing out, and whatever scenario in life it is. It could even be in your family. It doesn't have to be something worldwide. It could be something just specifically in your life, where maybe two friends are fighting and they're making you choose a side. Or two friends are fighting and you have to like try to support one or the other, or maybe they don't even want to meet up with each other and you have to play this middleman where you visit one and then you visit the other. I've had that scenario in my life before, especially with, my teenage years, but that's also a duality scenario playing out in your personal life. And what is 3D? 3D is the individual placed in to the 2D world. That's what 3D really is. That's why it's so dense. And you'll stay in 3D as long as you always choose a side. And you know how I love the saying here, because I want to try to place this in a personal, from like a personal aspect of your life scenario. It gets easier in your personal life when you're able to understand that every story has two sides. You know that saying, every story has two sides? Once we actually understand that not one person is wrong and one person is right all the time, that every scenario has two stories to it. And once we understand that, we'll understand both of our friends. We'll understand the friend that's mad at the other one and the friend that's upset at that one. We'll understand both of them and say, well, I understand where she's coming from. She feels this because of this. And I understand why she's upset at her, because she feels that she did this to her as well, or said this to her. And you'll be able to understand both parties. And then you've just managed to place yourself in 4D with that personal scenario. You didn't choose a side. You listened to both parties. You understood both of your friends. You felt empathy for both of them. Even if one, you might have been the initiator of a scenario, you're like, oh, well, she said some words that were really mean in the beginning and that just unleashed the whole fight. Maybe you understand that friend was just upset at her, for example, boyfriend, and ended up taking it out on her friend. And I understand she's going through a rough time with her partner, and I understand that she kind of needed to release it, and we usually release it with our closest loved ones. And it's only because she loves her so much that she was like the one that was bearing the grunt of her scenario. So everything initiates somewhere. We just need to understand that person. Why did that aggression come out of them first? Why did she attack her friend? Oh, her boyfriend, she just found out her boyfriend had cheated on her. She was really upset and she didn't know how to get out the frustration because she was never properly taught to take out emotions, for example. So everything begins somewhere. And so once we start understanding that and not placing ourselves on a side, then even in our personal lives, we can be in 4D. And this goes for our own stuff. Maybe that thing is going on in your life where you're the one that's on one side and you're the one feeling emotions and you're feeling the other person's doing something that's hurting you. You need to try to zoom yourself out and say, this is how I feel, and I understand myself, of course. This person over here explained this, what they feel. Oh, I kind of understand where they're coming from as well, even though I'm really upset at her, or I'm really mad at her, or she's making me feel not so great, right? You're able to understand the other party as well, and you're in the middle of it. Now you just managed to zoom yourself out into 4D in a personal aspect that directly involved you, and that's going to help you get out of that scenario less damaged and less dense. So when I talk 3D, 4D, I'm not doing this episode because of just what's going on in the world and because everybody's energy is kind of worried or chaotic. I'm doing this because we need to do this in every aspect of our life, not just world, collective, not just that, but in our personal life. And even when we're caught in that scenario, we're the ones that are in the middle of it. We are part of the duality. We're the ones feeling like we are one of those sides. Zoom yourself out. This is how we start choosing everyday 4D. What are the benefits that come with this? Everything aligns and flows in perfect synchronicity for you, because 3D no longer controls you. You're no longer directly affected by the energies of the three-dimensional world that limits us every day on purpose, because our soul chose that as a lesson. Our souls sign up to come to 3D to be able to learn to get out of it. And you know what it reminds me of? When they put those those mouses in those mazes, like the carton mazes, and the mouse needs to get itself out and find the exit. We're the mouse. And 3D is the maze. And all those scenarios that play out in our life, personal and external to us, that's all that maze. And we need to walk ourselves out of it. And once we walk out, we can leave the carton box of the maze behind. And we can go explore the rest of the universe and dimensions that are literally at our feet. But we can't see it because 3D blocks it. So the cool thing about what's coming into play, I've actively looked into the astrology thing. I've been learning astrology, but I'm very slow at it. So I didn't directly get it. I went to the astrologer that teaches me, and he was kind of playing out the scenarios of the conjunctions coming up in this year for everyone and things like that, worldwide, not just like one country. And around April, we have a really, really interesting conjunction that's usually when consciousness can expand. And so I want everyone that's listening, when mid-April comes into play and that conjunction comes into play, I want everyone who have already been practicing getting into 4D, because if you're already sitting in 4D when that happens, you're going to have the upper side and you'll be able to more easily expand your consciousness. Some people say, or some astrologers say that, with that conjunction, the veil, I can't remember the planets now. It was Jupiter with something. I don't remember now. But I'm sure most of you can find an astrologer that will talk about the conjunctions for the year, and maybe they'll talk about it. I listened to it in Spanish, so. But the interesting thing is that if you're already placed in 4D and we're already actively choosing it every day, when that mid-April hits, we will be able to connect even more profoundly and align ourselves more with our purpose, our soul, the flow, the synchronicity, our abilities. And I also think that that's going to help a lot of us expand many other aspects. Live more aligned lives, live more happy lives. You don't have to choose something every day that you don't want anymore. You can start choosing every day, stepping closer. It might not be magical in the sense like, boom, I'm living my most aligned life and I have the house I always wanted and I live in the place I always wanted and I have the job I always wanted. It might not be like, boom, like snap your fingers, but every day you're stepping closer to it and closer to it. And now you have this extra energy coming into our awareness and into the collective, the human collective, that could actually help you align yourself more and help you bring in those synchronicities even more. So I invite everyone listening to, every time anything in your life happens, personal or external to you, watch it, observe it. And I find it, what I find personally, what I find that makes me do it a little bit easier, I announce to myself, I am an observer. So right before I switch on like the news, or right before I listen to maybe a friend giving me, a whole spiel about how she's mad at her husband or something, I will literally say in my mind, and not out loud, but like in my mind, I say, I am an observer. Because of course I'm going to have the tendency to want to pick my friend's side, right? I want to be on the side of my friend because I want her to be happy and I want to be aligned, but I can't let myself go into 3D and be like, oh, that he doesn't deserve you. And a typical thing that women do, like, he doesn't deserve you, deserve better than that. And you need this and this and that, right? Maybe we are able to give them better advice if we don't choose her side. And if we zoom ourselves out in 4D and then you say, okay, well, I just listened to your audio, and why do you choose this every day? Why do you think this is happening in your life? And we can actually help create questions for them to answer themselves, because we cannot answer the questions for them because we're not remember those episodes that we did with Lorena where I talked about how not what's good for you is good for everyone else. And this is a scenario that I've talked about so many times. Like, for example, when I decided to leave the Cayman Islands and move to Holland, and I knew that I had to do it, and I felt it in my heart, and my intuition was telling me, like, and I knew, and everything inside of me knew that I had to do it. And I didn't know why, because you don't have to know the why. You just know that that's what is aligned for you for some reason. Yet everyone around me, family members, emailing me, messaging me, calling me, telling me that I was doing the wrong thing, that I shouldn't do that, because from their perspective, what I was doing was bad. But it was something that my soul had to go through, evidently, and I had to bring certain things into my life, and I had to learn things from it, and other things came from that as well. And I would do it all over again. And I think I was right in doing that because it was what I was supposed to do. But it wasn't like what Lorena was supposed to do. Lorena wasn't supposed to do that. If Lorena did it, maybe it wouldn't have been the same. And in Lorena's perspective, maybe if she had stayed in 3D when I had that conversation with her, maybe she would say to me, don't do that. You're going to ruin your life, or you're going to leave behind a really great life, or whatever it is she could have said to me. Instead, what we should be doing is, in that scenario, let's keep that scenario. I said, what should Lorena be doing in that scenario? She would be sucking herself out into the 4D and saying, Lorena in 3D is worried about you. Lorena in 3D is really hoping that things go well for you because I love you and I'm concerned for you. But I understand that you're really good at listening to yourself. And I understand that there must be a reason why you feel that urge and that push. And that might be the right thing for you. Because I know it's not the right thing for me, but it might be the right thing for you. So that would be 4D response to the person's scenario. Why do you think you feel that? Why do you think this is happening? What do you think you should learn from that? What do you think is going to bring into your life? And just get the person to kind of question for themselves, and they don't have to respond to the other party because the questions are for them. So that's kind of another way to kind of deal with somebody else's personal conflict from a 4D place. I am an observer. I am only an observer. And make sure you're pulling yourself out even before you hear the information. And then you hear the information and maybe it starts getting you angry because, he's, my friend's husband's cheating on her and he's done it before and now he's doing it again and I'm really angry and my friend deserves better. Maybe you get caught up with emotions of 3D and you say, no, stop yourself and go, I am an observer. I am an observer. And you'd say, hey, you know what? I listened to your audio and I thought, is it possible that your soul really needs to learn self-worth? Or maybe your soul needs to learn boundaries, or maybe your soul's here to experience what it is to depend on herself and love herself first. Maybe you're missing to love yourself, and then you can create that into your personal reality outside of you. Whatever it is that you observe from that scenario, I'm just throwing out ideas, right? Help them see where the lesson is by asking those questions and going, I feel like you need to concentrate on yourself and your own love. How do you feel about that? And create questions for them so that they can choose a better scenario for themselves. And so you can assist them still, but not in the 3D place where you let yourself get caught up in the middle of it. So I think it's pretty clear the difference between 3D and 4D. I'm just going to go over it really quickly. 3D is the person living out the scenario of those 2D duality scenarios and placing themselves in it. 4D is you being able, because we're talking from a conscious level of us in this scenario here, in this world on earth. 4D would be us able to zoom ourselves out and become simply an observer and notice and see that everything is a lesson, everything has a purpose, and sometimes that purpose is just for us to learn to be an observer. Sometimes it is for all the human collective to learn to pull themselves out of 3D and not choose it. To choose to just observe and to send love and light and keeping your vibration high to help the rest of humanity receive it, to help the rest of humanity get to where you're able to consciously choose every day to go. So, there's those difficult times going on for depending on where you are in the world, and remind yourself that you love every individual on earth, no matter which side of that polarity it's at. You love every individual. You understand each party has its story, and you understand that each party and each side has something to understand and to learn, and also possibly and probably externally to teach everyone else. We're going through an era where we have to choose to pull out of the 3D. We're going through an era where we're being tested to choose which one. So just think that this is like a pop quiz at school, and your teacher says, I hear that you're really interested in this 5D reality thing that everyone says is going to play out one day in the world. And I hear that you're interested in living your most enlightened life. And you say, yeah, actually I am, teacher. And the teacher will say, okay, well, here's a little pop quiz for you. Let's see how ready you are for it. And then you'll find that 80% of the kids answer the questions that show that they're still standing in 3D. And the teacher says, will continue to learn then. We're going to continue to do the class. And the rest of the class who might have answered the questions correctly that showed that their consciousness and their perspective is choosing the correct answers that are 4D, they're actually able to go into the class next door that's already learning their next lesson, and that's already learning what the creator energy is really about and what our manifestation energy is really about, and they can move on to the next class. So what happened? The children that said that they wanted to move on actually weren't really choosing or able to move on. And that scenario is not going to stop playing out. That's something you guys need to understand. Like, people talk about how Earth is going to vibrate in 5D. For a very, very long time, what we're probably going to be living on and seeing is those that move into 4D and then those that are still staying in 3D because they haven't been able to move out. It's not their time, or maybe their soul just hasn't chosen it, or maybe their souls might never choose it. So they're still going to be in that really dense class learning more difficult lessons, but you've already learned those lessons. And you've already gone through that, and you've consciously raised your vibration and your conscious level and your expansion, your perspective. You've been able to change it, and you're able to see it. But you have to respect that they're still choosing 3D. And you have to understand that they're going to still choose 3D. You cannot abolish in a blink of an eye from Earth 3D scenarios and that polarity that 3D brings. So it's going to keep playing out. Try not to let yourself be pulled down by it. Try not to let yourself get upset about it. Because today it's this, tomorrow it's something else. It was a little bit of a different scenario with COVID because the scenario with COVID was we all had to be affected directly because we had to go in. Most of us were able to start choosing 4D and we were able to walk into the next class. Try to make sure that if you were one of those people that walked into the next class, you're not looking into the class of the 3D, like the little window, at the door of the classroom, and you're looking in and you're paying more attention to their 3D life and what's going on for them than what's going on for you over here. So think about that, guys, like when you get pulled in to a scenario in the 3D world. Say, oh, I'm just observing through a class window. I'm still empathetic to them. I still love them. They're still part of my race, my human race. They're still part of my human collective. I'm still part of them. We are all still all one. I'm going to send them love and light. But the best thing I can do for myself and for them is to go back into my new 4D class. Because by me staying in that 4D class and not using all my day's attention in their class, what my vibration raising and my new lessons being learned is actually going to be a plus for me. And they're going to feel it because we're all connected. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you guys like the episode. I'm really the Akashic Records really pushed me, inspired me in the past week to understand this. And I went through a few roller coaster cycles where I was going into the 3D and seeing it. And then one day I just, boom, it hit me. I said, wow, it's almost like they made me see it. I get it. Everything that I just described in the whole episode, this is all something that kind of came in a flash, boom, it almost hit me, almost like a download and an instant. And I said, whoa, I got it. I understand it. So hopefully you guys understand it. Hopefully you guys feel like it hits you the way, those aha moment things. And hopefully it hits you guys the same way. And remember, every morning, choose 4D, and every conflict, every scenario, anything playing out in your life that you feel is going to suck you into that 3D, you can state in your brain. Or maybe there's another statement that you find more comfortable. For me, the statement is, I am an observer. I am only an observer. And just keep reminding yourself that you're an observer so you don't get sucked back into that density and that dimension that you no longer want to be a part of, because you stand for something else and you stand for something more beautiful and more expansive. Okay, so just a quick reminder that Lorena and I have these package deals going on where we do, because we found that a lot of people get a lot of benefits from our Akashic Records reading. And then we also realize that Lorena and I are very different channelers. So then we also do dual readings. So you can either get an individual reading with whoever resonates more with you. Some people like Lorena's energy more. Some people like my energy more. So whoever you feel more attracted to and you feel like you need a reading from, you can do that. You might also decide that you want a dual reading with both channels present. So Lorena and I both sitting down and opening your records. We're both asking the questions at the same time, and you're getting information from both channels. And then we have package deals where we brought into the equation because we felt like people needed a little bit more support, especially everything that's been going on Earth since 2020. So we ended up creating these package deals where you'll get a dual reading and you get angelic healing, which I do, and then you'll get flower therapy, which Lorena will be doing with you. So the reading brings in a bunch of information and clarity and understanding. You understand what your soul's here to do a lot of the times. You understand why scenarios play out. You understand more everything. People usually leave feeling like, I get it. It's that typical Akashic Records reading feeling like, oh, I get it. Like you're no longer a victim. You just get things, but you know how to align yourself, position yourself inside of those life lessons and inside of your life in general. And then the angelic healing brings in the healing of the physical, emotional, and mental plane. So it can work. You can have physical problems that you have in your body, and the archangels will be working on that, and the angelic realm works on that. So I do a session from distance for this. And then a lot of people have emotional problems. Like I'll have people that, want to get a session because their mental health maybe is a little off. So they help you with the mental plane and the emotional because, we're emotional beings and we have our ups and downs. So they also assist with emotional. So whatever it is, the angelic realm brings that all into the session. And then the flower therapy, Lorena has a kind of one-on-one talk with the individual, see what they've been feeling, what they need help with. And then she creates a formula for you to take that you can later on buy wherever you live in the world, and you buy the flower essence and you take that. And it's super supportive. Like I love flower therapy. I got into it a long time ago, and then Lorena got into even more, where she did even more, studied even more flowers. And so it's great because it really does, it's the essence of the flower that really goes in and really works on you and helps you. So all those three things we consider to be a very powerful package. So we have those packages. I'll make sure to get Lorena to link that to the show notes. And I hope that this helps you align more, and I hope this helps everybody feel much more purposeful, much more empowered, and that you have the right to choose for yourself which reality you're going to stay in. Because you can choose 3D if you want, that's fine, but you can also choose 4D, so why not, right? All right, bye everybody. Have a really good week or weekend whenever you're listening to this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.